Welcome to Cashflow Savannah, episode 28. Chandler, it's just you and me today. How you doing?
I am doing good. It's getting cold out here, and I'm not a fan of the cold weather.
56 degrees. I feel like I'm gonna die. I've been going out walking early in the morning, and I always tell my husband, well, you know where my will is. I probably won't make it back. I've been kind of like,
I know that's exactly how I am. It was like 40 degrees, and I was running last night, and I was like, I couldn't get warm. I walked back in the house, and I was like, I don't know how to get warm.
I'm
It was,
totally with you. We're pitiful. We are absolutely pitiful. We need to go move to the equator, I think, at least this time of year.
yeah.
Well,
So
Taylor, you and I just got back from a great trip. You didn't murder me. I'm sure you wanted to 14 times. For our audience, I'm very difficult to travel with. It's go, go, go. But we were in Nashville for the Data and Revenue Management convention. What a great convention.
yeah, no, I loved it. This was my first one. This was your
Second.
second one, and I know you have talked so much about this one. This is kind of your bread and butter that you really like to get into. And on top of traveling with you, easy peasy. You got me some Bose headphones that silence everything.
That's right. It
I'm
gets
a
me
master
every
sleeper.
time,
So, no,
right?
but yeah,
Taylor, we have to tell them about, we call it Peasant First Class. We've we figured out our travel arrangement in that we're always in coach, but we book the aisle. Chandler likes the aisle and I like the window, and then we try to have a seat in between us. And boy, we feel fancy when we are in Peasant First Class.
we sure do. That's it's funny. Julia's spoiled me traveling. I didn't know anything about TSA pre-check. Um, all the goodies when we travel.
All of them.
So now we're just traveling first class, but then when we don't sit first class, we call it peasant first class. So, but
Have you sat in first class? I
no, we haven't.
was gonna say you're
We'll have a good time.
Peasant First Class Plus this time. We got the ends of the row in the exit row, and that was fantastic. That was like
That's
Peasant
first
First Class
class today.
Plus. Yeah,
So we have a good time traveling.
always. It's fun. You don't sleep much, and you may or may not eat, but you will have a good time, and you'll be around amazing people. And this was no exception. Like the people at DARM were fantastic. I like this convention because it's very high level. I love to learn, and if I'm going to spend money, for us to go somewhere, I want to get that money back
Mm.
and plus some. That's just my expectation. And DARM, it delivered. So again, DARM is data and revenue management. This was very specific for the short-term rental world. And as most of you all know, Chandler and I both work as property managers in the short-term rental world. We work at Sidwas here. And we didn't take too much heat about our name this time, Chandler. Do you want to kind of give the audience an overview? What do we mean by dynamic pricing? That's really what data and revenue management means in the short-term rental world, although long-term rental managers need to use dynamic pricing as well. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, so dynamic pricing is kind of pricing based on demand in the area.
Right.
Um, so technology has given us the ability to, this is not a set it and forget it quite, but it's given the ability to let technology do its thing. Demand's coming in, let's raise the prices on it, does it by itself. Demand's lower, let's lower the prices to get people in. So dynamic pricing is a must if you're a property manager. And if you're looking for property managers, I feel like that's a must question you need to ask. Like, hey, how's your pricing? Because some property managers are still out there that are old school and just kind of, yeah, we do same pricing year round, or it'll be lower in the fall and higher in the summer and lower in the winter. But it's all the same price. But dynamic pricing really lets you push the pricing um, to max it out based on demand. And if you're not using it, you're missing out on tons of money.
Very true.
So, and I've seen that because I've worked with somebody that didn't use dynamic pricing, and now I do, and I'm like, man, they're missing out on so much money. So, dynamic pricing is a must.
Back in the day, short-term rentals obviously have been around for many years, and people used to go Saturday to Saturday, no exceptions.
Yep.
and then they would have a fall rate and a spring and summer rate, or or a ski season rate, or just depends on the market. And there are still some property managers that do that today. And I just shake my head. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But we have the ability to, change our pricing every 12 hours. In fact, if Chandler and I wanted to go push a button, we could update our rates, every 10 minutes
Hmm.
now. So with short-term rentals, it's a very much a technology play. And so you're always going to raise and lower prices based on, like Chandler was saying, demand. Chandler and I may or may not know that Taylor Swift is going to be in Savannah, and we don't have to anymore. Now our technology knows it for us. They go, oh, there's something going on this weekend because hotels are getting booked. And so it's naturally going to take our rates in the short-term rental world and push them. Now, I want to ask you to expand on this, Chandler, for landlords that have long-term rentals. We see a lot of times there's a very lack of dynamic pricing there. Do you want to talk about dynamic pricing for people with long-term rentals, Chandler?
So you talking about the medium term space or
So
actual winter?
like a 12-month lease. Like we see it all the time where people have a tenant in a house for say 10 years and they absolutely refuse to use pricing.
Yeah, some people, it's crazy. You buy a house and they're like, hey, yeah, this tenant's been in here for 10 years and they're paying the rent from 10 years ago. And you're like, what? The rent's tripled since from 10 years ago. And I know you love to, hey, let's get on a plan, raise the price yearly. Just a not crazy, just a couple bucks, and you always explain it as you train them, and they'll kind of get on it. It's just kind of keeps you up with the demand of the rent prices. Or if you do it, you get stuck with the $600 rent when everything's $2,000 nowadays. And
And as a landlord, our mortgage might be fixed. Like, let's say it's an $800 mortgage on a house, that's fixed. Okay, that's a blessing. But what we don't account for is that taxes are going to go up every year, unless the market just really struggles. They won't, but they're especially here in Savannah, they're going to go up because our market's going up. And insurance is going to go up every year. And in some places, insurance is going up exponentially. Can you imagine being in Florida and being 10 years behind on the rental amount, and now your insurance quadruples, and what are you going to do? And I have bought properties personally from landlords that they just didn't want to deal with it, and they had people in for years. They didn't want to raise the rent on them because they never had, and they end up selling it to me because they'd rather sell it to me at a discount than raise the rent on the tenant. And it happens all the time to where they've kind of put themselves in a hole with the tenant, and the tenant is basically going to have to move out because very rarely are they going to take a huge rent increase. So
yeah,
it's important as an investor to raise the rents every year, even a little bit, but just train those tenants like, my expenses are going to go up, rent is going to go up. It is what it is. And we also want to keep up with market rents on the short-term side and on the long-term side.
yeah, for sure. You make a good point. Nobody thinks about property taxes going up and insurance going up. That is not something that people think about going into it.
Right.
And they're like, oh, if they're paying, it's fine. But if your expenses are going up, you got to keep up with it so you can keep cash flowing. So,
When you think about your cash flow shrinking every year, and that's not good, right? And then when you really look at it, like some people, they'll have a tenant that's $800 below market. That's multiple thousands of dollars that you're financing their living expenses every year. Like you're
mhm.
financing them to live there basically, when you could put it on the market tomorrow and get a lot more. I talked to a seller just the other day, and he has these duplexes, and he asked me, he knows I'm an investor, and he was having me come give my opinion on things. And he said, what would you rent these for long term? And I said, 1,400 aside. And he said, I'm beginning, I think he said 900. And he ended up having to just kick the tenants out so that he could bring in new tenants. But had he been pushing the prices every year, he
Yeah.
would have been in that situation and had two empty units. So
Mhm.
anyway, it's just good to be thinking about dynamic pricing no matter what strategy you're using. I just want to say that today's episode is going to talk quite a bit about short-term rentals, but I just want to say that this has bearing for both sides of the coin. So DARM, one of the biggest reasons I went to DARM as a short-term rental manager, and I know you've experienced this with me, Chandler. 2022 was the best year ever in short-term rentals. Like everyone did well, including us at Sid was here. And 2023 has been a bit of a hot mess because we had oversaturation, we had less travel. Those two things combined, where you have less stays and then more properties. And then add to that here in Savannah, we had no movies. It was kind of a 1, 2, 3 punch. So I went into DARM kind of needing someone to be like, it's okay, Julie, you're not a total failure, because it's easy to wake up and say, what is wrong? And
Yeah.
did you feel comforted a little bit that Chandler? Because everyone there was brutally honest that it's been a tough year nationwide with short-term rentals.
They were, yeah, very honest. Everybody, I don't know if I really heard anybody say, yeah, I've had a good year. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think, I'm not sure if I met anybody that was like, yeah, it's a fantastic year. Now everybody has a property or two, yeah, that did well, but
Yeah.
as a whole, it's going down for sure.
It's been a tough year. They gave us a lot of hope for the future. One thing we got out of it was a lot of statistics, which I really appreciated, and I did take some notes. One interesting thing that I thought was fantastic, I didn't know this, but it said small units this is in the short-term rental space. Okay, I want to be clear. Small units saw the least reduction, and houses that have been hit hard in 23 have been the larger houses. I thought that was quite interesting. What are your thoughts on that statistic, Chandler?
Yeah, no, I honestly thought it'd be the opposite. Um, just because, I don't know, the larger houses tend to they do well, especially when you're traveling. Like people can split. Like if it's a 5 bedroom house, they can split it 5 ways or whatever. If it's 5 families, 4 families, or whatever, it's just cheaper. To where that one person's having to pay for the entire thing, and it's probably about the same as it would be if it was a 5 bedroom. So I was kind of surprised to be with that, to be honest with you, just because it's just easier to split and be cheaper.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many 5 bedroom short-term rentals do I own? Oh yeah, zero. 4 bedroom, zero. Like I've always been a small house kind of gal. I love a 2-1, 2 bedroom, 1 bath. I love a 2-2. A 2-2 is hard to find in Savannah. But I'm going to disagree in that I see a lot, and I've been doing this for years. Okay. I'm talking about years worth of like thinking about this. What am I going to buy? What am I not going to buy? But you get a lot of single people that travel. It's medium term and short term, and then you end up with a family. So you take a family, let's say in a good time, like let's say 2022, your family, you and your wife and your 3 kids, of course you want a 4 bedroom house. But now it's 2023 and things are tighter. Well, you can squeeze into a 3 bedroom house, even though it would be nicer to have a four. But if you have a 3 bedroom house with a pullout, if you're feeling tight, you're more likely to go down but still take the vacation,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So, and then, like I said, the 2 bedrooms, like I've done a lot where I ended up making it a 1 bedroom because I just only wanted 2 people in there, and then I made one into an office. So, I was just very interested to see the data on that. The other thing again is that we've got oversaturation, and then more people are getting in, and then with larger homes, they make a higher nightly rate, and we all know that, but they also tend to have lower occupancy. This is a very common, fact, but they make so much money, it usually works out better. And so you figure a larger house like that, you have maybe 6 less bookings a year. I mean, that's quite a kick to your revenue right there.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that came to mind was like the people that are booking the bigger houses, like 5 bedrooms, they're probably not like if it's a larger revenue houses, they're probably not struggling right now.
Mhm.
Like rich people aren't struggling really ever, and so they're not gonna downgrade that. So I guess that's kind of what I was thinking. Like,
Mhm.
rich people are just getting richer right now, really. Um, so they're still going to be traveling, doing their thing. So because I follow a couple of people that had the big 5 bedroom houses, and they seem to be kicking still. So I think that's why I was more surprised than anything, because
Yeah.
I follow a few people that do the big, like that's kind of the way to go, and they had a great 2023, bringing in $3 million across their, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, but
Nice. I wish
yeah, no, it was. What you say?
I wish I were one of those. That's great.
So, I think that's kind of, I was like, that's why I was surprised. But yeah, no, I don't disagree on your take,
Mhm.
as in families are going to definitely go to 3 bedrooms instead of four for sure.
Well, and I remember hearing when we had the downturn 15 years ago that people that were wealthy were still wealthy, exactly what you're saying. I agree with that. And they could rent the 5 bedroom homes, but it was much easier for them to step down a tier. So they continue to travel at a lower
Hmm.
tier level. And so that's where, they always say in real estate that luxury gets hit first, actually. So I've heard that many times where, like for long-term rentals, for example, a guy that's, maybe a tech guy and he loses his job, he can't afford 6,000 a month rent. So he's going to move down into something that's 3,000. But people doing the more blue collar, landlording, that's very steady. You know what I mean? So anyway, there's always different theories, but you have a great take on it.
Yeah, no, that was kind of my take. I feel like we're both not wrong. Like, I agree with you completely on that. So, but yeah, that was one stat. I remember that stat they showed us. I think the common number was like everything's down, what, 8%, 9% this year. Um,
I didn't write it down, unfortunately.
yeah, I think that was like kind of the common number.
Mhm.
And then,
Revenue's up like 21%. So did I say revenue? I'm sorry. Uh, Inventory. I'm sorry. I said
yeah,
the wrong
yeah,
word. 21% more inventory and then only 8% more revenue. And so you understand that's where that shrinkage comes. And we all say, wow, we're getting less bookings. One other stat that they brought up, which I thought was very interesting, they said it was huge on the screen. It said longer stays are out, shorter stays are in. How do you interpret that?
So from listening, I remember I think they were talking about kind of like you mentioned the Saturday to Saturday, and I think they talked about from 5 days to 3 day bookings are doing better than 5 days. So that's how I interpret that.
Right. People were dying for a long vacation. And now this year, they've realized we can't afford a week-long vacation or a 5 day vacation. Let's just do three.
Hmm.
So longer stays are out, shorter stays are in. And I have to say, even on the medium-term rental space, we're still renting the medium-term rentals, but I think not quite as many people are hitting the road and traveling from anywhere. So that's been a little bit more difficult. 2022, that was all the rage, just to just get on the road and be in a different city every month.
Yeah.
So travel trends are changing just a little bit there. But I also want to use that opportunity to talk about dynamic pricing, which is what, the conference was about. And part of dynamic pricing is actually the nightly rate. The other part of dynamic pricing is the number of nights stayed. So Sid was here. What we tend to do is we try to get longer stays for further out booking. And then as the stay draws closer, we drop that minimum night stay. Some of our units in the historic district, we actually allow a 1 night stay for either a last minute booking or if there's a hole in the schedule. Like let's say the guest is checking out on Sunday and then we don't have another check in until Wednesday. Well, it's very likely that I'm going to book that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So I have my software set up and I learned to do this at conferences like DARM to where as soon as I have a 3 day hole in that schedule, it instantly makes it a 1 night minimum stay. And that way we can increase the revenue for that owner by even if we can fill one of those nights, they're still going to pay a cleaning fee. So it's going to be an expensive 1 night stay, but they can book it for one night. And a lot of hosts don't do that. So we try to be kind of out of the box thinkers here at Sid was here. We really want to generate as much revenue as possible for our owners. So even though longer stays are out, shorter stays are in, that doesn't scare us in the least because we are very set up to handle things like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's why these conventions are always nice because
Yeah.
I've never known that that shoulder stays are in. I just never would have thought about that. So it's nice to get to know that. Um, but yeah, I think it was also a confidence boost. The one thing I heard was 2019. It's going back to 2019, and so it's kind of figuring out those numbers and
Yes, they're comparing revenue now
yeah,
because 2020, forget about it, horrendous. 2021, everyone was still kind of stuck inside. 2022, lights out. 2023, crash. So they're trying to say, how are you pacing against 2019? That's what all the pros were telling us to do for
yeah.
2023, pace against 2019.
So the question I asked you is like, what are some of the things that you're kind of doing to get ready for 2024 or recommend other people to do to get ready for 2024?
I cannot believe you just asked me. You literally just asked me the most perfect question of what I wanted to talk about anyway, which is that You and I are going to continue going to these conferences. Number one, it's great networking and we learn a lot. But number two, the biggest reason we were there is I wanted to know what's coming in the future, right? Because that's our job as property managers. Our owners aren't going to do that. That's our job. I need to see the trends coming. I need to set up for them. Okay. And so they talked a lot about what's coming. So now we know, let's go after smaller houses. Let's not have a 5 night minimum like maybe we used to, but we don't. I think I have a 4 night minimum for 6 months from now. I'm not going to change that. But one big thing that's coming, and this didn't come out of DARM, this is because I'm on two separate boards of tourism. But the new thing in 2024 is really they're pushing EV tourism, electric vehicle tourism. I have been to multiple meetings about this, and I personally drive an electric vehicle. I love it. And it is difficult to do road trips with an electric vehicle. I have experienced that myself. So knowing that EV tourism is coming, I'm setting up for the other things that we've already talked about, but I'm actually starting to put in electric plugs into my short-term rentals. And Airbnb has flat out announced that they're going to raise those listings up to the top if they have that check, for an
Mhm.
EV charger. What are your thoughts on these EV chargers coming? Chandler, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's really smart, and a lot of it is like getting on that Airbnb algorithm and getting pushed to the top. So anything to get pushed to the top, you got to start doing to kind of separate yourself, especially with so many coming in. Now, I do think the ones that weren't really focused on like having a good experience and like being a great stay are going to kind of weed themselves out, which we're already kind of seeing. Um, so I think we're kind of just going through like a correction almost, and then the people that really keep pushing forward, which you are, I can see, and doing the extra things are going to just keep doing well.
Yeah, I'm excited about these EV charges. And just me personally, as a short-term rental investor, I've been putting more money into my properties. We're to the point in this market where you're either going to make it really perfect or you need to get out and make it a long-term rental. And so some of those I'm getting out and some of those I'm doubling down. And
Yeah,
since the two houses that I'm putting the charges in, they've been getting a bit of a rehab already. I'm like, let's just go ahead and add this on. I'm excited though, because I purposely have chosen chargers where the guest is going to pay for their own electricity. Again, I drive an EV. I have no problem paying for that. I in no way would expect someone to give me free charging, although it'd be nice. I'll take it. Um, but I've been putting them in two of my short-term rentals that are more on the outskirts of Savannah, and there are no chargers around. And so I think that's going to be even a bigger deal because when you drive an electric vehicle and you can charge up overnight, you want to have it there. So I've chosen chargers where the guest will pay. There's each one has a QR code. The guest will scan the QR code, put in their credit card information, and that company handles the whole transaction. I don't touch it, and then they reimburse me, on the back end for my electricity. So I'm really excited about that. So the EV travel is something that I see coming for sure in the future, and word to the wise for others. So I'm hoping to really put some stats together on these two that I'm doing so that we can share it with our other owners and say, hey, this is what I did and this is the revenue I received. Or, even if we can get 1 to 2 more bookings a year because of that charger, that's huge revenue. So I
yeah,
want to be able to put some stats together and get some of our other owners on board as well.
yeah, that'd be really cool. That's really smart. And that just kind of goes to say like get out in the community too. Like you're on the board of tourism, and so I would have never thought about EV chargers. And so props to you for kind of listening to that and seeing where it's going in the future. So
Yeah, I'm excited. And the other thing too is a big part of our revenue source is people that work on the movie sets, and a lot of them have EVs. A lot of them, hopefully they do, and they stay with us already, but we want them to stay with us even more and just say, no, I will only stay there. So I think that's important to just think outside the box. The other thing too, which our Airbnb rep has been talking to us about, and I want to share with you all if you're in the short-term rental space, is that another thing that boosts you in the rankings with Airbnb is having a crib, having something for a baby. And so I've been working on I can't fit cribs in everywhere, especially in these small houses. I have a lot of 2 bedroom, but I've been buying pack and plays. And it was funny because last week I went on Amazon because I said, okay, I have 2 properties that I have identified that I personally own that I want pack and plays because I want that click. I want that. I want to go to the top. I want to be, attracted to families. I do have them in some of mine. And I went on Amazon and the cheapest one was $60. And I'm sitting here looking at the $60 charge, which doesn't sound like much, but I've been doing rehabs on these houses already. I'm already kind of like, oh, financially. And the plugs I think are well worth it. And I'm going to have to buy that brand new. And I thought there's got to be a better way. And Chandler, I took a page out of your book. I went to Facebook Marketplace and I was able to buy two pretty much brand new pack and plays, each for $25. And
Yeah.
I went and picked them up the other day and I was like, this is so cool. So I'm going to do that. And I want to encourage our listeners, keep making your properties better, keep adding different things that are going to add. And, for a family traveling with a young child, you carry a lot of crap. Like I've been there. So I'm hoping that those will also help me in the rankings.
Yeah, for sure. And props to you. I know it can be kind of scary, especially if there's a slow year to just be like kind of spending money.
Yeah.
Props to you for kind of going, you know what? Like I'm gonna keep spending some money and hopefully the payout will come in 2024.
Pray for me because that's
Yeah.
exactly where I've been with several properties and I've pushed off some other rehabs that I need to do so that I could get my short-term rentals because if you're going to shut down a short-term rental in Savannah, the time to do it is November, December. Like it's kind of slow, that's kind of our shoulder season. And I said, I've got to do this because especially this one starfish, it does very well. And so there's really no other time that I would want to shut it down because it would cost me not just the rehab, but all these bookings. But to shut it down in the off season, I'm only losing maybe a couple of bookings versus a lot. So that's always another calculation to make. But you're right. It's not easy to say, hey, let's spend another $1,000 when it's off season already.
Yeah. So here's a good question that just came up in mind. So if you were looking 2024 to buy either a short-term or medium-term rental to put on Airbnb, what is your perfect house and how do you do it? Like how do you furnish it? Like what's the perfect house? What are you buying?
Okay. Location, location, location. Always. That's a very
Okay.
huge consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Neighborhood is massive. Um, I would want to have something unique and different that other people don't have because putting a new property in the market now when I already know it's oversaturated, I wouldn't even consider doing that unless I had a really solid plan for how I was going to stand out against my competition. And I think that's so important. And again, the two we're talking about have been in service for years. So I'm not putting new inventory in, but yeah, if I were going to put in new inventory, I would be very careful about that. I would want to know my market. I would want to know who's going to stay there and why. And I would have to do a lot of, I'd really want to have a plan before I pulled the trigger on that.
Yeah. So are you buying, I wanted like the type of house. Are you going to buy a 2-1? Would you buy a 1-1? Would you buy a 3-1, 3-2? Like what's kind of the perfect house you're buying?
You know what, Chandler, to be honest with you, the market dictates that deals are not easy to find right now. If we were 6 years ago, I would tell you, and I did, I was going after the 3-1s and the 2-1s, and I
Mhm.
was adding a bathroom. I love a small home. If I'm going to furnish it, I like it to be small. Like one of my 3-1s is only 900 square feet. It's right next to Memorial Hospital where we get tons of travel nurses. And I bought it back in 2018, knowing I was going to furnish it and I wanted it small. So I pay less utilities, I pay less for furniture, and the location is fantastic. And that house is done very well. But back then, I had 100 different deals I could have chosen from. Now if I'm lucky, I'm gonna have 2 to 3 to choose from. So I'm gonna tell you that it's gonna very much depend on the market. Um, and I do have buyers right now as an agent, and they are buying larger properties for furnishing. But again, they have a very specific purpose for doing that and a set plan. I have this one guy, he goes very hard for big families that want an experience. So he's going to put in a pool, he's going to put in a hot tub, he's going to put in a game room. He has an absolute avatar for who he's going after, and he does very well. So again, number one, are the deals out there? And for me, I'm very reactionary. So I'm going, what is out there and what can I do with it? I'm seeing a lot that really would make just as much money as a long-term rental. So I'm going to go that route. But if I know it's a solid play as a short-term rental, I'll do that all day long.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just wanted to ask to see kind of what your thoughts were on like the perfect short-term rental for 2024. So I feel like I have a similar. I'm not even sure where I would be at I'm kind of torn in between, is it an experience stay or kind of just like a normal, um, I do know one thing, you do have to kind of separate yourself, and I think EV chargers, that's a big separation. I don't think I've ever seen one at a property. So that's pretty cool to have.
Well, and Chandler, the other thing I want to say is that even though we're oversaturated, there's still areas where there aren't. So if I
Yeah.
was coming in here to look at that, I would very purposely get on Airbnb, see where the inventory is, see where the industry is, see where the industry's coming. You know very well as I do. I've been wanting more EV chargers in Liberty County, and not EV chargers, short-term rentals in Liberty County because that's where a lot of the growth is pushing, and there's not a lot of competition. We get requests, so again, try to think outside the box and don't go where there's a ton of people already. That's how I really started making money, was just very much thinking outside the box.
Yeah, no, I like that. Not much competition because Savannah is very competitive. Like
Yeah.
everybody wants a house in Savannah, and like the deal comes up, you're fighting for it still. Like if it's a deal, now if it's not a deal, it's you're not gonna be fighting for it. But yeah, if it's a deal, you better hop on it quick. But yeah, like I said, I've had a ton of people kind of going to Liberty County or kind of outside of Savannah, and
Mhm.
it's like, oh man, it's a little bit easier to get a deal. So yeah, I really like that.
I've been pushing my clients into Pooler. I've had 14 conversations this week with short-term rental buyers, and I'm like, please go to Pooler. Everything we manage there is full, and
Uber does very well.
it's halfway between Savannah and Pembroke, which is where this huge plant is going in. Like I would look there too. Pooler, Bloomingdale, Ellabelle. I still think there's room there. So
I
it,
agree,
this is
100%.
why if anyone, you need to work with someone, an agent, a property manager that really knows their stuff, because they're going to not only save you money, they're going to make you money. The
Yeah,
last thing you want to do is work with someone that, oh, maybe they have a cute photo that has nothing to do with it. You've got to have someone that knows their stuff, and that's very important. I can't say that loudly enough, because you and I have dealt with the people that bought with someone that didn't know what they were doing, and then they wanted us to kind of make up for it, and it's very tough once you buy.
we do it all the time, actually. It's sad. It's kind of like, man, I hate that they got put in that situation, thinking they could. We get put in a situation all the time where, oh, we're going to short-term rental this, and you can't.
Right.
And so I can't tell you how much that happens.
Every day.
So,
Every day. I sent you
or
another
it's just the location or whatever is not very good, and they just have no idea. So,
Absolutely. So, anyway, I appreciate everyone tuning in today. We wanted to talk about the conference. We want to talk about the future. We want to talk investing here in Savannah. That is what Chandler and I do. We've always lived here. We will always live here, and we know this market inside and out. So, thank you, Chandler, for your great insights and for making it through another wild ride. It was a great trip, and I feel like we got a lot out of it.
yeah, no, and if you're thinking about if you want to learn more, go to a DARM convention. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of like data and revenue management, like just people that specialize in that. So it's so good just to talk to those people and just pick. You get to pick their brain. Like you just say, hey, like what are you doing right now? And
I haven't even said this yet. I got to hang out with Anurag from PriceLabs, who is
she's
my
there.
celebrity crush. Like, I just get just tongue tied when I'm around him. I'm like, oh, it's Anurag. He's like
Yeah,
Brad Pitt to me. He's just so smart. And I got to hang out with him, and he looked through my account with me, and he gave me a few freebies, they call them tokens on PriceLabs. So, oh my gosh, I would fly to Nashville just to hang out with Anurag, but seriously, this guy owns one of the largest, dynamic pricing companies, and he's literally standing there. You can
yeah,
walk over to him with your computer and have him look at your account with you. Like, that's almost invaluable. So that's where conferences like this, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep improving. We're always going to try to stay ahead of the trends. We're going to try to set the trends, right, Chandler?
yeah. There you go. And as far as property managers, there's some out there that are doing it, but we are always staying ahead of the game. So when you're looking for a property manager, please just ask the right questions. Like, hey, are you staying ahead? Like, what's happening in the future? We're ready for those questions. We can answer those questions for you. So when you're looking for one, ask those questions, please. So, but thank you for tuning into episode 28. And please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye bye.